students. We're back to finish up our discussion on biomes. Yesterday, if you recall, we talked about 6 different types of land biomes. Well, I want you to keep in mind that planet Earth is covered with water. We are terrestrial or land organisms, so we're most familiar with and we live our lives on the land. So we automatically associate life on Earth with us on land. But about 3/4 of our planet is covered with water. And so there is a vast array of life that exists under the surface of our water bodies on planet Earth, which many of us know little about because, well, we can't breathe under the water. And so it's a major exploration for many of us to examine what lives in the oceans and the deep lakes and other bodies of water on planet Earth because it's not our natural environment. But they are the natural environments or the biomes of a vast array of plants and animals. So we would not be fair to them if we didn't have at least a brief discussion of the major biomes that exist in the water. So today we are going to be exploring what can be divided basically into the 2 major water biomes on planet Earth. But keep in mind that even though we're only discussing these 2 major water biomes, these 2 biomes take up 3/4 of the surface of our planet, unlike the 6 biomes that we discussed yesterday. So, with all that in mind, let's begin with our first major water biome, which is called the marine biome. In fact, some people spend their entire lives studying the marine biome. They might be called a marine scientist, a marine biologist, an oceanographer. You could literally spend your entire life studying the marine biome and literally not scratch the surface of the types of organisms that exist in the oceans because the oceans of the earth are so vast. They are incredibly large. But let's just try to summarize some of the information about the marine biome. Marine biomes include the saltwater oceans of the earth. And you'll see how this is distinguished from our second water biome. But let's just focus on the marine biome right now. Now, since we're talking about all of the oceans of planet Earth, the climate is difficult to describe because we're talking about water bodies from the polar regions down to the tropical regions. The Arctic Ocean in the northern hemisphere and the Southern Ocean in the southern hemisphere are brutally cold environments, but they are vital for producing the nutrients with the convection currents and causing the flow of water and fauna and flora throughout all of the oceans of our planets. And so that constant movement from tropical warm waters to polar cold waters, the convection currents that exist because of the density of the different temperature waters is vital, actually, for all life on our planet. So marine water biomes potentially could be the most important biome on planet Earth, even though it's the most unfamiliar to most of us. Now, you might have some appreciation for it if you've seen movies like Finding Nemo. In fact, these colorful pictures here of a coral reef are common pictures that people might associate with the marine environment, but these exist only in small regions of our entire planet. But let's talk about the flora, the general flora in a marine biome. The flora is also very diverse, from phytoplankton, which are microscopic plants, like one-celled to multicellular plants that you'd need a microscope in order to see, all the way up to seaweed that is taller than the tallest trees on planet Earth's terrestrial biomes. So there is literally quite a variety of flora in the oceans. Most of it, however, most of the flora, most of the plants in our oceans are floating plants. In other words, they move from one place to another. They don't typically have roots that are attached into the ground, because when we're talking about land biomes and plants and trees in particular, those roots are intended to extract water from the ground and store food for later. Well, if you're a plant and you live in the ocean, you don't need to do that. You're surrounded by water. You don't even need roots because your whole structure is surrounded by plenty of water. And depending upon where in the world you are located, there's always a plentiful supply of light energy to produce the food that you need in order to survive. So the flora of marine environments, from phytoplankton to gigantic seaweed. And because of that diversity of flora, we also have an enormous diversity of animal life. The fauna in the marine biome is unbelievable. From zooplankton, which are microscopic animals, all the way up to the largest animal on Earth, the blue whale. The whales are the largest animals of any biome on Earth, and they've got, well, plenty of room to grow when you think about how large the oceans of the world are. I mean, it's almost unfathomable. There's a pun, by the way. A fathom is a unit of measurement in oceans, in water. In fact, the fathom is 6 feet deep. Anyway, it's almost unfathomable how diverse life is in our marine biomes. There are so many species that we don't even know exist yet, because we've just barely scratched the surface, literally, of our oceans. In recent decades, there have been some explorations down to the bottoms of the ocean, and we have discovered whole new ecosystems that exist near hydrothermal vents on the very bottom of the ocean. And we can't spend a lot of time down there exploring because the water pressure is so intense, it would literally crush our bodies. And so there's a lot yet to be explored in the marine biomes on planet Earth. So once again, the marine biome is by far the largest biome on our planet, but it's also the least explored. So maybe some of you will have an interest in exploring the depths of our own planet someday and be able to share with us some of your discoveries of new life forms that exist on the bottom of the ocean. All right, that brings us to the second major water biome. And these we're probably familiar with. They are the freshwater biomes. The largest freshwater biomes are found in the Great Lakes. The Great Lakes of North America are the largest supply of fresh water anywhere on our planet. There are other freshwater lakes around the world as well, to be sure. But the Great Lakes, they're called the Great Lakes for a reason. They have a massive amount of fresh water. And when we talk about fresh water, maybe you're not aware of this. When we talk about fresh water, we're not talking about it in terms of it being stale or rotten. Fresh water is water without a lot of salt content. So imagine you were swimming at the ocean and you took in a mouthful of water and then you spit it out. Ocean water is very salty. There are lots of salts and minerals that have been carried down into the oceans of the world. Fresh water is evaporated with the water cycle or the hydrologic cycle, and the fresh water falls on the land, but the salts are left behind in the oceans. And so the marine environments have a very high salt content. Freshwater biomes, however, are the result of that unsalted water that is evaporated, condensed, and undergoes precipitation with the hydrologic cycle, falls on the land, flows over the land, and eventually back into the sea or back into lakes. And so freshwater is called freshwater because it's just not salty. And the freshwater biomes can include both still and moving water. Still water can be found in lakes and ponds, and moving water, streams and rivers. And as the water moves in streams and rivers, it does tend to dissolve more salts and minerals as it gets closer to the ocean, and then deposits those minerals in the oceans, and the oceans get saltier, and the fresh water is evaporated again and undergoes the hydrologic cycle. So there's a constant supply of fresh water that falls around our planet in different land biomes, but the water itself, these freshwater regions of our planet, contain a whole host of life in and of themselves. First, let's talk about the climate. Since these freshwater biomes are found everywhere on the earth, that it's warm enough for fresh water to flow, freshwater biomes can exist from polar regions to tropical regions. There are freshwater biomes right now that exist on the melting glaciers in Greenland. As the glaciers continue to melt, they form rivers of fresh water with no forests around, but they are filled with microorganisms that exist in those polar rivers. Tropical rivers, when we looked at the tropical rainforest yesterday, the picture of that biome showed a waterfall. Plenty of life in those tropical rivers. But let's talk about the flora. The flora of freshwater biomes extends from algae, which can be unicellular or multicellular, so very small structures of algae, to mangrove forests. And mangrove trees are specially adapted to having their roots submerged under the water. And in fact, I think most mangrove forests can be found in somewhat brackish water as well. And brackish water is like an estuary where fresh water meets the salt water. And so there are interesting plant species that exist in these different regions of the earth. And so there's a lot of variety with the flora. As far as the fauna is concerned, again, a wide variety from unicellular protists, and you'll be learning a lot more about protists in life science, but protists are interesting one-celled critters, up to beavers and other things as well. Plenty of other mammals and birds take advantage of freshwater biomes around our planet, but we can describe the fauna from protists to beavers in the freshwater biomes on planet Earth. So there we have it. We have, over the last couple of days, discussed all of the land biomes as well as the water biomes, a total of 6 land biomes and a total of 2 water biomes. So, again, I encourage you to study the names of the biomes, the climate, the flora, and the fauna of each of these major biomes on planet Earth. Now, tomorrow we're going to be having a little lab activity. And this lab activity is all about biomes. And I think I'll just leave the discussion of that activity for tomorrow. And so for now, I'm going to say bye bye.